Hilchos YomTov. Actually, Shavuos is one of the only holidays that gives us the time to do so, as there aren't any laws that take so much time. Mitzvah Shavuos itself. Well, Mitzvah, I'm going to do the laws of Shavuos on Tuesday night's share. So today we have time to do one share, which will be continued over the years, obviously, on Hilchos YomTov. And first Simon, chapter 495 in Shulchan. And chapter 494 is actually laws of Shavuos, and the very next chapter is 495, the laws of YomTov.
Chapter 495, what?
The laws of the holidays, YomTov. Right? Every YomTov has some unique laws. Pesach, the laws of Pesach, right, go from 429 until 492. The laws of Shavuos go from 494 to 494. The laws of Sukkot go from 625 to 670, 669. Every holiday has unique laws. But then there's the laws of YomTov regarding Malacha, just like the laws of Shabbos. Just like on Shabbos, there's restrictions of what you're allowed to do and not to do. So on YomTov, there's restrictions of Malachas, what you're allowed to do and not to do. Now, that's not unique to Pesach or Shavuos or Sukkot. It's universal to every YomTov, whether it be Sukkot, Shavuos, Shmini Atzeres, Rosh Hashanah. It belongs to all of them equally, and this is the beginning of the Siman and the chapters dealing with these set of laws. So the first thing to know of is that Hilchos, there's a lot less knowledge. There's a lot less common knowledge of Hilchos YomTov than there is of Hilchos Shabbos. It's a lot more complex than Hilchos Shabbos. A prerequisite for knowing Hilchos YomTov, Hilchos Shabbos, which itself is very complex, as we know, with many details, many chapters. So to properly know Hilchos YomTov, you must have a good foundation of knowledge of the laws of Hilchos Shabbos. Because of this, and because of the known statement that it's for the sake of food and it's okay to do on YomTov, there's a lot of confusion of what actually is allowed and not allowed. Now, the bad news is that most people aren't confused. They just think it's okay. They don't even know to be confused. They don't have the knowledge to be confused. So Mirz Hashem, at least in this first chapter, we will at least be confused. We will reach that first step of knowing to be confused and knowing, that it's not so simple, and there may be a question if I can do this on Shabbos, and it's not just like on YomTov, and it's not just, well, it's for the sake of food, so it's okay. It doesn't work so quickly. And based on that, we can work our way up. Before I begin inside, I want to address two questions that are relevant to this year regarding Hilchos YomTov that are relevant all the time, but I think it's more relevant this year because in Eretz Yisrael we will be having a 2-day holiday, right? A 2-day YomTov. It's really 1 day, but Shabbos goes into YomTov, so it's as if it's a 2-day, right? That's the intent. In Chutz La'aretz, it's going to be 3 days, Shabbos, and then 2 days of YomTov, right? So it's a total of 3 days. So first thing, number one, just the basics is that, as we know that we're going to have a special, we'll talk about this also Tuesday night, Mirz Hashem, that there's a special Havdalah that we say on Motzei Shabbos as part of Kiddush called Yak Nahat. So that's just a reminder. We'll go through that on Tuesday night, Mirz Hashem. Now, a few questions. Question number one is preparing from Shabbos to YomTov. So in general, whenever we have a back-to-back Shabbos holiday formation, we do what's called Erev Tavshilin for the sake of being allowed to do the preparations before Shabbos for Shabbos. Now, it doesn't work the other way around as well. And the answer is no, it does not. There is no procedure similar to that of Erev Tavshilin that is done to allow one to do preparations on Shabbos for the sake of YomTov. It's non-existent. It's similar to the non-existence of any procedure to be done on the first day of YomTov to prepare for the second day. We in Eretz Yisrael only have that on Rosh Hashanah, but in Chutz La'aretz they have that every YomTov. It's never allowed to prepare on the first day of YomTov for the sake of the second day of YomTov. You can do 1,000,001 Erev Tavshilins, it doesn't help. Chachamim didn't give such an allowance. Erev Tavshilin is only for YomTov to Shabbos, when YomTov falls on Erev Shabbos, to prepare an Erev YomTov That's the only case it works. What does this practically mean? So this practically means that we need that all the preparations that need to be done for the meal can only be done after Tzeitzek Yechavim. Goes without saying that lighting candles, preparing the candles, and all that can only be done after nightfall. And nothing is allowed to be done after sunset until nightfall begins. In which case, the person would say, Hamavdu ben Kodesh l'Kodesh, right? And only after they say Hamavdu ben Kodesh l'Kodesh can they go ahead and do malacha, can they go ahead and light the candles.
That feeling is not this. You're not an Erev.
There is no Erev Tavshilin. Nobody's going to be doing Erev Tavshilin now because I said before, Erev Tavshilin is only in the case that YomTov falls on Erev Shabbos, not in the case that YomTov falls after Shabbos.
So now you're talking about when you're allowed to start preparing for Shavuos.
So I'm explaining. So because of this situation that we have to know what preparation regulations are there. So the answer is it's pretty simple. You can't prepare anything. You can't do anything. You cannot prepare anything on Shabbos for YomTov. Okay? Now, we're going to discuss two cases of possible exception. Number one, it's not such a big deal for me to set up the candles and light them after Tzeitzek Yechavim. It's not such a big deal. How long does it take? It's not such a big deal to set the table after Tzeitzek Yechavim. Everyone comes back from shul, everything's ready. What about the challahs? Let's say the challahs are frozen, or the meat's frozen, or the food's frozen. It takes time to defrost. If I can take it out on Shabbos, we anyways have an all-nighter on Shavuos, but that's usually in shul. Now we're going to have an all-nighter on the dinner table because the food's just not ready until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So what do we do? So number one, you don't have to put your food in the freezer, right? You do have a fridge, which hopefully works, and you can leave your food ready starting Erev Shabbos in the fridge, take it right out after Tzeitzek Yechavim, put it on your plot and let it heat up. It shouldn't take that long, especially until you reach the main course. It shouldn't take that long. If it's challahs, you can put your challahs on top of the blech. It'll get nice and toasty. It's not such a big deal. But in the event that, no, this is freezer food, don't tell us how to run our kitchen. This has to be left in the freezer. Okay, fine. So what do? So there's a debate amongst the poskim and whether it is mutter to take out freezer food on Shabbos or the first day of YomTov for the sake of the frosting for eating of the night meal. What's the basis of this debate? So we know that there's a rule that on Shabbos and YomTov it's forbidden to do an act of preparation for the next day, even if that act of preparation is benign, does not consist of any forbidden work. I'm not turning on a light. I'm not selecting bad from good for the sake of the night meal. All I'm doing is moving item A from place A to place B. That's not a malacha. I'm doing it inside my house. There's no malacha involved. But nonetheless, the sages do not allow one to have his mind on other work, which is it's a big lesson in and of itself. Is that a lot of people, we have a natural tendency to always be thinking about the next. Instead of enjoying the present, it's always about the next. Like pictures. The whole idea of pictures is thinking about the next. Instead of taking in the present, you're thinking about watching it looking at it in a picture of the future. So this mentality of always thinking about the next, and instead of nurturing the present, the Chum said is not. They don't buy it on Shabbos and YomTov. Shabbos and YomTov is only about Shabbos and YomTov. Don't think about anything else, including another day of Shabbos and YomTov. Think only about this day. So they forbade doing any preparation, any tircha, any trouble, any effort for the sake of the next day. It doesn't matter the next day Shabbos, next day YomTov, doesn't make any difference. However, there were cases that they gave leniency. One of those cases is to prevent a great loss. In a case that not doing the preparation can cause a great loss, such as, for example, let's say you have vegetables that if they're not put in water now, they're going to go bad. They need to be put in water in order to prevent them from shriveling and remain edible. So even if I don't plan on eating them on Shabbos, it's permitted to place them in the water on Shabbos in order so when I decide to eat them during the week, they remain edible. That's a case example of, to prevent great loss, the sages dismissed the restriction or prohibition.
That would be considered a great loss.
Well, it doesn't have to be a great loss, a loss. So I have a bag full of cucumbers, it costs 20 shekels. Prevent a loss. However, this case itself is it's not permitted in all situations. This is a case, cucumbers, if you want, you can eat it on Shabbos. It's not like, It's not like, it's apparent to everyone you're doing it for the week. Maybe I'm doing it for Shabbos Shabbos. No one knows what I'm doing. Only I know that I'm doing it for after Shabbos. So the various discussions regarding whether that case itself contains limitation, whether the great loss permission is itself limited to specific cases. The Mishnah Berurah brings the name of Chayei Adam a Chiddush, that, and it's the way they rule, that likewise for the sake of a mitzvah it's also mutter. If you're doing it for the sake of a mitzvah. Based on this, some of the poskim today say, hey, the night meal that we're going to be having on YomTov night, it's a mitzvah meal, right? It's a mitzvah to have a Sudas YomTov on YomTov. So by me taking out the food for the night meal, I'm doing it for the sake of a mitzvah. I'm not doing it for no reason. And if I don't take it out to defrost, it's going to cause a great delay in the meal, which is called a shasat chak. So therefore, they say it's permitted to remove the food from the freezer. That's how they want to learn. Others, however, say don't learn that way, and they say it's not considered. What great loss? So where do we find precedent that eating your meal having your main course at 11:30 instead of 9:30 is a great loss? Where do we have with the cases discussing the food's going to be inedible? The foods are totally edible. The question here is about you. Are you going to be available? Where do we see that making you more available is considered is allowed to dismiss this prohibition? Furthermore, the Alter Rebbe in the Shulchan makes no mention at all of this tzarich mitzvah heter. It's permitted for the sake of the mitzvah. Bottom line is like this. Those who take out the foods from the freezer to defrost for the sake of the night meal, if they do it with much time left in the day that it's possible for them to benefit from the YomTov itself, so the chicken, the meat, or whatever it is on Shabbos itself, or from one day into the next day, same thing, then they have upon whom to rely. Yes, al ma'alismech have upon whom to rely. Definitely should not be taken out last minute, and definitely those who follow the Alter Rebbe initially should not rely on this at all. The best thing is either to leave your food in the fridge or to take it out and eat some of it on Shabbos. Enjoy some of it on Shabbos itself. So you're taking it out not just for YomTov, I'm taking it also for Shabbos. I'll have it for Shabbos Shabbos. Or you take it out after nightfall and put it on your platter right away. How long is it going to take to heat up? If you have a strong platter, how long does it take already? The meat will be ready by the main course. The challah, by the time you come back from shul, will be defrosted and toasted. So it really shouldn't be such an issue. Any questions on it?
You're going to cover candles. You mentioned candles briefly. Are you going to cover that? Existing flame and all that stuff?
Well, yeah, okay. Well, obviously, as always is the law, we have to, right? We can't ignite a new flame. We have to extend the flame. So that's why you have to leave a 24-hour candle available from before Shabbos. And if you want to have a flame available throughout YomTov, then that's so you leave a 48-hour candle, and Chutz you leave a 72-hour candle.
You can actually touch candlesticks. Obviously, you have to do that.
Yeah, you can extend. Extend means you bring your item or to the flame, or you bring the flame to the item. It's just you don't ignite from new. You don't ignite from scratch.
Are there any issues in preparing food before Shabbos for YomTov?
No, before Shabbos, it's not Shabbos. You obviously can do whatever you want. The question is, will it be fresh? Will the wife agree? That's the question. Second case we'll discuss now is regarding showering. So this is a classic halacha in which there's so much confusion. People don't know, and even learned individuals, I found that they don't know. They don't really know what the halacha is regarding this. The common misconception is that you're allowed to take showers on YomTov. It's not a problem. You're allowed to take showers on YomTov. Or the more common, I should say, you can take limb by limb. If you do limb by limb, it's mutter on YomTov. I don't know who took these things out of a box and decided that should be the law. I'll explain what the halacha is. There's a few approaches. First of all, it's a very complex sugya. This subject is very complex with a lot of different opinions and details within the opinions. If you look at my article on it online, it's a few pages long with about 100 footnotes and many sources. So it's a complex subject. It's not a simple subject. On Shabbos, it's quite simple. You don't need that much of a discussion. It's forbidden to take a hot shower on Shabbos or a hot bath on Shabbos. It's that simple. Cold is mutter min adin in a time of need. The question is, what's with YomTov? So I'll start Malakal or Kaved from the simple to the more complex. Obviously, this comes up more often now. We're in the summer, Shavuos time, 2 days. It's a lot walking back and forth. It's extremely discomfortable to not take a shower. And so the question is, what can we do? So the good news is that a cold shower is always allowed, even on Shabbos, in a case of need. So if you feel disgusting, repulsive, dirty, you can obviously take a cold shower even on Shabbos, let alone on YomTov, when we have less issues involved, such as no issue of carrying the water, there's no issue of Heitzah on YomTov. So,
Soap, rinse.
I didn't say to use soap. I said to use water, cold water.
Limb by limb, or it doesn't matter?
No, well, why limb by limb? Take a regular cold shower. You can even jump in a cold body of water, jump in a cold pit of water, ma'ayan, even a pool. Can't swim, just go in and go out, right? To cool yourself off. That is not a problem on Shabbos in time of need. Only a shower will allow, not a river, a shower in your building, in your house. But on YomTov, even a river in a time of need is mutter. Say you're walking, you're next to the Kinneret and you're boiling hot, and you can't stand it. You got to go for a little dip. Well, you can't swim, which means you can't tread. So watch how deep you walk. Nonetheless, I mean, obviously, if it's a matter of either that or drowning, you can swim. Don't enter yourself to that situation. Then you can dip and leave. Okay, so that's regarding cold.
As long as you're not close.
As long as you're not wearing clothing. Well, regarding clothing, we have an Isser, both on Shabbos and YomTov, of Malabin, which is that it's forbidden to wet clothing on Shabbos or YomTov. So yes, you cannot go in with a bathing suit. That is true. You have to go in like you go to mikvah, or like most people take showers, right? Not wearing a bathing suit. Okay. Now, what about hot water? A regular hot shower. So, a regular hot shower is usher to take on Shabbos. On Shabbos for certain, either due to a cooking prohibition or due to a bathing prohibition, and meaning either due to the Raisa de Rabbanan, but no matter how you look at it, it's forbidden. While on YomTov, it may not be forbidden due to a cooking prohibition, as usually the boilers that is heating up the water is being used also for, the hot water of the whole house, turning on the faucet, washing something. So since it has permissible use as well, there's no Isser D'Oraisa, and possibly not even an Isser D'Rabbanan, of causing water to cook in the boiler on YomTov. So that issue is kind of put aside. The only issue we would have, which is D'Rabbanan on YomTov, is if it causes a flame to ignite. Some systems have an automatic boiling system, which it automatically turns on the electricity or the flame, and that obviously would be a problem because you're not allowed to ignite a new fire on YomTov. You can only extend it. So anyone who has an automatic system, that's automatically invalidated for use on YomTov, not because of the problem of taking a hot shower, but because of the problem that you're igniting a flame. That would mean, by the way, that even a warm shower you can't take. You can't even turn it on a drop, because even a drop is going to cause the flame to turn.
Same problem with washing dishes.
What's that? Well, yeah, of course. You can never ignite a fire on Shabbos. So if you have an automatic system, then you can't turn on your hot water on YomTov either. You can only turn it on if you don't have an automatic system. In that case, it would be mutter. Even though it's going to cause something to be added, in that case, it would be mutter. Now, we still have a second problem. I don't have an automatic system. I have water due to the sun, hot water due to the sun, or I have hot water left from before Shabbos, or I even arranged for the boiler to go on for 2 hours in the morning, and now it's the afternoon. Can I take a hot shower? So practically the way we rule is that it's not allowed. There's a difference between Sephardim and Ashkenazim. For Ashkenazim, it's not allowed. The reason why it's not allowed is because we rule that you can never take a shower, just so you can't take a shower on Shabbos, hot shower on Shabbos, because of what's called Zeres Habalanim. Chum made a decree that people would heat the water in a forbidden way. So too, that same decree applies in YomTov as well. And therefore, it's forbidden to take a hot shower on YomTov. The only way it's permitted for Ashkenazim to take a hot shower on you heated the water before YomTov, and in that case, you're doing limb by limb. The water was heated before YomTov, and you're doing limb by limb, not the entire body of time. But if the water was heated on YomTov, then there's no heter for an Ashkenazi to go ahead and take a hot shower.
This year it's totally impossible because Shabbos is before you have to heat it on Friday. It would be hot on
Or you have the sun. You have the sunroof, right? You have the sun that heats it up, and then you can have your timer, right? Turn on and heat up the hot water on Shabbos, which would still be a problem. You would not be allowed to take a hot shower in that method on YomTov. So Sephardim, however, have a leniency that they allow taking a full shower with water heated before YomTov, and if the water was heated before YomTov, they allow taking a shower with that water. And as well, some Sephardi poskim say that if it was heated by the sun, then we give it the status as if it was heated before YomTov. Alter Rebbe doesn't hold that way, but there is such an approach. So for Sephardim, bottom line is that we're strict. That the only way for you to take a hot shower on YomTov is if the water was heated before YomTov, and even then, you can only do one limb at a time. You can't do. Yes. Okay. If it was heated before YomTov, yes. So now you understand where the confusion came from, because we have the concept of doing one limb at a time. So people just assume you can always take a hot shower one limb at a time. No, wrong. That's only in a case that the water was not heated on Shabbos, was not heated on YomTov, was heated before YomTov. In the case that it was heated on YomTov, then it is problematic.
Is this the part you were referring to as the bathing prohibition, or you haven't gotten to that?
This is a bathing prohibition, absolutely. This is the bathing prohibition, yes.
I'm sorry, if you have a Dut Shemesh, that counts.
So that it was heated on Shabbos, it was heated on Shabbos.
So that's okay.
No, it's not okay. It's not okay. You can't even do limb by limb. On YomTov, on Shabbos, you can't even do one limb. You can't do anything. Well, you also can't turn on because of a cooking prohibition. But on YomTov,
Dut Shemesh on YomTov is, what's that situation? What are you saying about that? Dut Shemesh on YomTov.
I understand. It's right. It's automatic. Dut Shemesh on YomTov, and nonetheless, we consider it as if it's heated on YomTov, and it does not contain the heter of being allowed to wash your body. The water that was heated on YomTov due to the sun does not contain an allowance to be allowed to wash the body due to that. Okay? So basically, bottom line is that hot showers are out of the question, even if you do one limb at a time.
You were talking before about something with water being heated before, but Dut Shemesh heated it before it was in a reservoir. It's in a reservoir from having been heated before.
Yeah, correct.
That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, if the water, let's say the water was heated before Shabbos, this year before Shabbos, before YomTov, and it's still hot, then yes, you can do one limb at a time. In a regular YomTov, if, let's say, you didn't get a chance to take a shower before YomTov, not this year, that's Shabbos before YomTov. The regular YomTov, that it's YomTov was right, weekday. And you didn't get a chance to take a shower, so the water is hot from when? From before YomTov. So in such a situation, you would be allowed to even use the hot water of the shower to shower one limb at a time.
You can't turn the Dut Shemesh off, though, I guess. So it's going to continuously heat. If some of it was heated beforehand, it's going to continue heating it. The sun is going to continue heating it all through every day.
That's not your problem. And you can also use that water, you just can't use it to take a shower. You can use that water to wash your hands. You can use that water to wash your face. Use that water for whatever you want on YomTov. Your limitation is only regarding taking a shower. Okay? Now the good news is, so that was the bad news. The good news is that you are allowed to take a warm shower on YomTov, as warm in halach is considered like cold. So what you're allowed to do is on YomTov, if you don't have an automatic boiling system, which turns on a fire, that you can turn on your hot water, turn on your cold water, turn on your hot water, and let it measure it so that the water on the one hand is not cold, on the one hand is also not hot. What's the definition of warm? Some say it's 98.6. which is the normal body temperature. But bottom line is that we measure it based on what people, you can tell. You touch the water, you can tell if it's hot or tell if it's warm, what people consider hot versus warm. So long as it's warm and not hot, it is valid, and that's the mutter way of taking a shower. Okay, we're going to begin inside chapter 495. Siman Tov Tzadik Hey. Mechaber, yeah. Which actions, which works are prohibited on Yantif, and it contains 4 halachas. In the Mechaber it's 4 halachas, in the Alter Rebbe it's a lot more than 4. It's very long. Aleph, Kol malacha asura b'Shabbos asura b'Yantif. The Mechaber starts off right, very, to the point, very blunt. All malacha that's forbidden on Shabbos is also forbidden on Yantif. So first he says, guys, everyone who thinks that Yantif everything's permitted, first and foremost, everything that's asur on Shabbos is asur on Yantif. That should be the attitude. That everything that's asur on Shabbos is asur on Yantif unless you know otherwise. Unless you know for a fact otherwise. That this detailed malacha is written to be permitted. But the status quo is that whatever is forbidden on Shabbos is likewise forbidden on Yantif. Chutz, except for, so what is then the difference? Obviously there's a difference, otherwise we wouldn't be having the laws of Yantif, right? It would just be the laws of Shabbos and Yantif together. Chutz min melechas eichel nefesh, with exception to work that involves, meaning forbidden actions that involve food. So food-related actions have cases of allowance. Again, I emphasize cases of allowance, meaning it's not across the board that anything food-related is permitted, rather the opposite. Anything that's not food-related is forbidden without any clauses. It's just forbidden. There's no exception. Something that involves food, that is food-related, then it's possible that it's permitted. What makes it actually permitted versus just possibly permitted? So we're going to learn these conditions. And another exception is, aside from food-related actions, is also actions that relate to carrying. You're allowed to carry on Yantif. There's no issur of carrying. So Yantif, one of the reasons why Chachamim did not want to limit a person's simcha being able to go back and forth and travel, is when you limit someone's ability of movement, you incarcerate them in their home because they can't take their baby or they can't take this. So they have a lack of joy in the Yantiv, and the Chacham did not want that to happen, and therefore they removed, they said that we are going to permit people to carry on Yantiv. Now, even though carrying is biblical in a Rishus Harabim, how can the Chacham permit it? The answer is, since it's permitted to carry food, right? Food-related malachas is mutter, so I'm allowed to carry food. So the Chachamim said not only is food mutter, but actually all simcha-related actions are mutter to be done on Shabbos in terms of carrying. So I'm allowed to carry anything on Yantiv. I'm allowed to carry anything on Yantiv, even an area without an eruv, if it's for the sake of simchas Yantiv. What I cannot do is I can't carry on Yantif for no reason. So there's no such thing as on Yantif, there's no issur of carrying. No. On Yantif, the issur of carrying is reduced tremendously, and in a lot of cases it's permitted. But in some cases it's forbidden. I'll give you an example. We came, let's say someone who, here in Sfas, they don't hold by the eruv for whatever reason. They hold by the eruv, but they don't carry, right? So, or there is no eruv. You're in an eruv without an eruv at all. And you went to eat your milchik meal by a friend's house, your family, friend, whoever it is. You took off your talis and everything, and you're ready to, you sat down for the meal, and now you're ready to go home to have your meal. Can you carry your talis with you? So first of all, you can put it back on, put your talis back on, wear it, and then you can carry even on Shabbos without a name, right? You're wearing it. But it's very hot. He doesn't want to wear his talis. Can you carry it? The answer is no. Why should you be allowed to carry it? What simchas yantiv is involved of having your talis brought to your house? If you don't trust, if you think this person you're eating by is going to steal your talis, why'd you come to his house to begin with? Why are you eating by him? Why are you befriending the person? He's going to run off with it. Leave it here. You come back after yantiv, you'll get it. You don't have a right to carry just to save yourself time after yantiv. That you're not allowed to do. That's not simchas yantiv.
If for some reason you need the key to your house, The key is on a keychain with your car key. You take it off.
Okay, that's a general question even on Shabbos. Can you carry your key to your house if it's on the car key? So the halach is that you should take it off before Shabbos. And if you didn't, then on Shabbos, you try to take off with a shinoi. If you're not able to, sometimes it's very hard. You can't do it without a shinoi. Then halacha l'mai says that we permit it because you're allowed to move a muktzah item for the sake of a need. We learned this in our previous classes. You're allowed to move a klisha malachta le'isser muktzah item for the sake of a need, unless you consider your car key. They have some car keys are very simple. Then you have some car keys which I don't know, advanced technology. They have all these different things. They scent, smell. I don't know. So if it's a very expensive, advanced type of key, which you treat, you won't do anything without it. No one can touch it without permission. Then it's a big problem. It's a big problem to what to do. But regarding carrying, so the pashtus would be mutter, because if I have to take it along, I'm not. The whole thing is being carried for the sake of the simchas yontif. It's like if I'm bringing, a pot filled with, I don't know, kugel or potato salad, whatever it is. So I don't need the pot, I just need the food. But how am I supposed to bring it without the pot? So the pot is an accessory to the simchas yontif item. Right? No one's eating the pot. So it's the same idea. If it's an accessory to the simchas yontif item, you can't do one without the other, then you can carry it the same way. Same thing. Same idea. Very good. I carried a sefer to my friend's house. And we ate over there, and that's it. I'm done. I stayed up the whole Shavuos night. I plan after this meal now and taking a snooze until YomTov is over. No, you can't bring it home. You can't bring the sefer home. You have to leave it in your friend's house. Now, if you want to learn a little bit before you go to sleep, then fine. Then you still need it. So you have to make it that it's still needable. I'll give you another example. On Sukkot or on Rosh Hashanah. When we have the shofar with us, or we have the Daled Minim, the Leuven Esrog, I finished Mivtzayim. I finished doing Mivtzayim. I finished blowing shofar, or I blew for the shul, or I shook my lulav in the shul, and now I'm taking it home. So, in a case, regarding a shul, we have a special head to that. The Chachamim said, if there's no safe area to leave it in shul, then you're allowed to carry it. Otherwise, if we made you leave it in shul, public area, and people may be scared and they might not bring it. So to a sitter, if I don't have a safe area to leave my sitter on Yontif in a shul, then I'm allowed to take it home. And that's the heter of bringing things to shul and bring them back home if I necessarily may not come to use it. But that's only by a shul, so don't get confused. It's a special heter by a shul. If I'm going to a friend's house, again, so let's say I stop by a friend's house to eat the meal, after blowing shofar, shaking lulav on Sukkot, and I brought it with me, I have to leave it there. Unless I plan on doing it with time, unless I plan on still using it for the mitzvah. But if its mitzvah use is already finished, as far as I'm concerned, then I don't have a heter to carry it. Based on this, the Rebbe told Chassidim not to wear a watch even on Yontif. Even on Yontif, just in case, because they were makbid that people may come to wear it on Shabbos. But they shouldn't wear it. In other words, that on Yontif, there still are restrictions of carrying. And even though a watch is something used until the time, it has a simchas yontif. That was the Rebbe's personal directive. And as is known, the Rabbeim didn't even carry in yontif. Chabad Rabbeim, before the Rebbe, did not carry in yontif. They would have someone else carry for them, not even the talis. Even towards going to shul, they wouldn't carry the talis. They have someone else carry it for them. Okay, the havara. The third exception is extending a flame. You're allowed to extend a flame on Yontif. You're allowed to cause a fire on Yontif, not ignite, but extend a fire. That is, of course, due to the reason that you can't cook without fire, so the Chachamim allowed you to do the accessory malacha of lighting, of extending a flame. So to any preparatory malachas that are necessary to be done for the sake of making the food is also mutter to be done on Yontif, such as, for example, what happens if you have a skewer that you're using, that you use all the time to barbecue your meat, and pump on Yontif the skewer broke, and now you're unable to use it. It has to be sharpened, which is an isser of tikkun kli. Can you do it? So even though we don't rule this way l'maisa, but there is room for leniency based on the words of the Mechaber, that since it's necessary for me making my food and wasn't able to do it before Yom Tov, so therefore I'm allowed to prepare it. However, if the skewer broke before YomTov and I just didn't take the time to prepare it, to sharpen it, then it's asr min adin, even min atayra to do it. That's called machshirei eichel nefesh. Hagav, yesh mechmin afil beichel nefesh atzmoi, while the mechaber leaves for the Sfardim a very, pretty much straightforward way about it, that if it relates to food, it's okay. He doesn't mention more restrictions. The Ramah adds more restrictions towards this. He says the following. There are those who are machmir, that even regarding food-related malachas, it's not an all-out heter. You can't just do whatever you want. Kol she'eino mafik tam klali masam erev yontif. Me'im lo yasam erev yontif, yesh b'tzorech yontif masad adishin. The Ramah says the following. When do we allow doing something that's food related, a malacha that's food related on Yom Tov? Only in a case that you couldn't do it yesterday, you couldn't do it before Yom Tov. But if you could have done it before Yom Tov, without it diminishing in the quality of the food, then you're not allowed to do it on Yom Tov unless you do it with a shino, with an irregularity.
So, in practicality, any Shabbos, any gadgets for food preparation that are not electric, obviously, that you wouldn't use on Shabbos, technically you could use on Yom.
What do you mean by gadgets? Give me an example.
Some people don't use peelers or hand graters.
So a peeler, for example, that's going to be a daily halacha on probably Tuesday or Wednesday. Using peelers on Yom Tov. Regarding peelers, halacha l'maisa it's mutter to use, and the basis of the heter is that even though bayra is its own subject and it has its own laws, pretty much every malacha has its own detailed laws. It's not, even though here we're learning the rules, it's unfortunately it's not one rule fits all the malachas. You first learn the rules and then you got to dissect every malacha and take it apart and see what's allowed and what's not. Bottom line is that in this specific case of a peeler, it's mutter. For example, in the case of a grater, it's not mutter, but in the case of peeler, it's mutter to use on Yom Tov. But again, only if you couldn't do it before Yom Tov, meaning that it would have ruined. If you peeled your tomatoes or apples or potatoes before Yom Tov, it gets brown, it gets weird. So it diminishes the quality. So that would be a classical example of where if you couldn't do it before Yom Tov due to diminishing quality, it's mutter to do on Yom Tov. No, grater is a different problem. It's problem of teichin. It has its own laws. We don't use a grater on Yom Tov unless you do it with a shinoi. You have to do it in a specific way, like upside down, whatever, different ways. Asif Beis. So even though the Mechaber did not mention this regulation of that if you could have done it before Yom Tov, then you can't do it on Yom Tov unless it's an irregularity. He does mention in Sif Beis a regulation relating to food-related malachas, which is as follows. The following malachas of ktsira, which is harvesting, tchina, which is grinding, ktsira, which is harvesting grapes, schita, which is squeezing fruits, that's food-related, and seda, which is trapping animals, even though they are all for the sake of food, squeezing grapes for the sake of making grape juice to make kiddush or drinking grape juice, squeezing oranges for orange juice on Yom Tov. Asrum chacham, the sages prohibited it. Why? So now we're going to try to summarize. At this point, we've already read everything inside, that we can begin summarizing the rules of how it works, of which malachas on Yom Tov, the general rule of which malachas are asr and mutter, and this is in the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe has, by far, in my opinion, the most clear and detailed introduction of Hilchos YomTov of what's permitted and what's not permitted. He really delineates and clarifies everything regarding this in his chapter, corresponding chapter 495. So there's basically 5 conditions. In order for a malacha to be allowed to be done on Yom Tov, you need to fulfill 5 conditions. Let's go through them. The first condition is that it has to be defined as meleches eichel nefesh. It has to be defined as a food-related malacha. If it's not a food-related malacha as defined by halacha, then it's forbidden to be done biblically, just like Shabbos. There's no difference. So, for example, I'll give a few examples of things forbidden that the Alter Rebbe mentions. You're not allowed to extinguish a candle. You can't extinguish a flame. There's no extra heter YomTov versus Shabbos to extinguish a flame. The only time that there's a discussion of an allowance to extinguish a flame is in a case where not doing so will sabotage your food. Such as, for example, I left the flame on way too high, and it's going to burn my food. So in general, extinguishing a candle is not food related, so of course it's forbidden.
So lowering the flame would normally not.
It's also extinguishing. Yeah, it's extinguishing.
Extinguish, lowering means you can extinguish it completely and lower it?
Even if I have a bonfire and I take out one piece of twig that's in there, I just transgressed the biblical extinguishing prohibition. Yeah.
Okay. So to what extent is allowed then to extinguish? You could actually take it out?
So I said the only case where there's discussion if you can lower or extinguish is in a case where it's going to burn your food. In which case, some place can rule that it's mutter in that case to lower the flame because it's going to burn your food. Then it's for the need of food. But the mainstream approach is unlike this approach and is just light another flame. Extend the flame to another burner and turn it on lower. This burner is too high, turn on another burner a little low. Extend the flame to that burner and cook in it. Why do you have to go ahead and extinguish this flame? Another case that some people discuss, some places can discuss, is extinguishing in a way called grama, in an indirect method, such as by making sure to consciously place more water than necessary in the pot that you're doing to, boil your eggs on YomTov, and conveniently have the water, when it's boiled out, spill over and extinguish the flame. So some places can want to give a heter to do that because they say it's a case of grama, and on YomTov we're more lenient regarding grama, regarding causing an indirect action. The building prohibition is just like on Shabbos, also on YomTov, which would mean also tikkun kli, fixing, which would mean that all opening of cans have the same law on Shabbos as they do, have the same law on YomTov as they do on Shabbos. So those who do not open cans on Shabbos cannot open cans on YomTov either. There's no difference. Those places can hold it's us to open cans on Shabbos. You can't open it on YomTov either. The only thing you can do, even on Shabbos, is ask a guy. You can ask a guy to open it. Or you can get a Jewish Shabbos guy. A Jew who's noihig to open it on Shabbos. He follows a lenient approach. He can be a Shabbos guy. You can ask him to open it on Shabbos, open it on YomTov.
There's no issue on YomTov of
There is, but in this specific case, there is 100% is in this on YomTov. There's no difference.
because it's like it's okay.
Not because of nefesh. In this case, even on Shabbos, it's mutter to ask a guy. And the reason is because the Alter Rebbe explains that there's a machlekes, what malach is transgressed by doing so. Is there a malacha transgressed at all, or is there no malacha transgressed? And because of the dispute, the halach is that in the case of dispute, you are allowed to have a Gentile do it for you. We don't apply mir l'nachri in the case of a dispute if it's allowed or not, even for a Jew. That's the basis of the allowance. That's why even on YomTov, you're technically allowed to have your guy open your cans for you. You can even tell him, can you open the tuna can? Digging is another example, forbidden on YomTov, just like on Shabbos. Destroying, makav patish, that we already said. Tanning, which is salting foods, right? Salting foods has limitations on YomTov as well. It's not so simple. It's not. It's food related. I'm adding salt to my salad. It's food related, so therefore everything's okay. There are also restrictions regarding this. If I recall correctly, even on YomTov, just like Shabbos, one is to place the oil in first. First put in the oil, and only then add the salt, just like we do on Shabbos. Why? Because in general, tanning, ibud, oichen, pickling something, is done for many days worth. And this is the basis of what that stipulation the Mechaber said earlier. Mechaber made a list. We read this in Sif Beis, that you can't squeeze, you can't do this, you can't do chamzit, you can't do these things. Why? What's the common denominator? Why do they pick these malachas and say you can't do them? Because they're generally done for more than one day's worth. Any malacha that's generally done for a few days, a week, etc., it's done in bulk. The sages said if we allow people to do it on YomTov, as is the biblical law, then people are going to spend their whole YomTov doing work for the weekday. They're going to squeeze all their oranges, all their apples, they're going to harvest all their wheat. There's going to be no YomTov anymore. So they said anything that's normally done for more than a day's worth, that's done in bulk, you can't do it anymore. No more Costco malachas, right? No warehouse malachas. You can do a malacha that's usually done for one day. You do it for one day. But for the meals of YomTov, that's it. So because of this is an example of ibud, of salting, pickling. That's why there is a restriction involved. Other examples is memachik, smoothing, right? You can't do the same way you can't smoothen a cream on your body on YomTov, on Shabbos. You can't do on YomTov either. Mechatech, which is the isser of cutting something to an exact measurement, is asur on YomTov, just like on Shabbos. Writing, erasing, all these things are asur on YomTov, just like on Shabbos. Cutting hair, melabin, which is the isser of whitening, of laundering. No difference, asur on YomTov as well. Okay, so tying and untying is the same halachas, tearing is the same halachas. So we see there's a long list of things that really nothing has changed. Now, even amongst the list of malachas that are considered food related, based on the criteria we said earlier, this is condition 2. Once condition 1 is fulfilled, that we've established that it's for the sake of food, we still have to fulfill condition 2, is that it's for the sake, is that this type of malacha is a malacha that's done directly for the sake of food. Meaning it can't be machshirei eichel nefesh. I said before, you're not allowed to sharpen your skewer, even though it's for the sake of the meat, because you could have done it before Shabbos, before YomTov. Since you could have before YomTov, it's called machshirei eichel nefesh, you're not allowed to do. So anything that's not directly relating to the food, but is relating to the item that relates to the food, then you have to do it before YomTov. You can't do it on YomTov. That's the reason, by the way, you can't ignite a new flame on YomTov, because you could have started the flame before YomTov. Now we can't expect people to, use up fuel and light everything before YomTov and have everything lit already. So the Chachamim weren't that strict, but the flame itself, the ignition, has to be started before YomTov. So that's condition number 2. We have to verify that it's directly relating to food and not something that's indirectly relating to food. Condition number 3, it's not a malacha that's done for many days' work. It's not a bulk malacha.
One that you just said.
Correct, the one I just said. Other examples of bulk malachas that have restrictions is boira. The laws of boira and YomTov are not completely permitted. In other words, they don't follow a complete permission and allowance, unlike Shabbos. They have restrictions. Not the same as Shabbos, they're different, but there are some restrictions of selection on YomTov as well. I'll just give an example. Let's say you want to make rice on YomTov. There's no problem. You can make rice on YomTov. You can, put it in the pot and boil rice on YomTov. The problem is that you're going to be checking it for bugs, for twigs, for rocks, for pebbles, etc. Can you do that on YomTov? Is there a buyer prohibition? The answer is there is, because you could have done it before YomTov, and usually it's done in bulk. So therefore, you can only remove the rice from the pebbles, and you can't remove the pebbles from the rice. And even that can only be done for right-of-way use. Just like on Shabbos, it's the same rules as on Shabbos. That's the general rule of buyer. The buyer, if it's done usually in bulk, if it could have been done before YomTov, it's no good. You can't do it on YomTov. However, let's say I couldn't do it before YomTov. I happened to see a fly in my soup. It just flew in. This is not possible to have prevented from before YomTov. So can I, instead of removing the soup from the fly, remove the fly from the soup? That's the question. And the answer is, in that situation, it's mutter. Not on Shabbos, on YomTov. And you don't have to take some of the good with it. You can have the whole soup for yourself and just take the fly itself out. You can even use a little tweezer, pluck it out, and you can enjoy the rest of the soup. I think most people probably throw out the soup.
Soaking lettuce in soapy water.
Soaking is mentioned explicitly has a restriction on YomTov as well. That is not considered that's considered a bulk form of bayrer. So therefore, that would have a restriction. You cannot soak. Let's say, can I take the rice and soak it in water and have the pebbles and all other waste float up or down? The answer is no, you can't.
So you can't wash salad off.
So what you can do is you can wash the lettuce with a stream of water. That's okay.
You could.
Just like in Shabbos.
Yeah, you can wash the lettuce.
Yeah, because it's for right-of-way use.
What?
For right-of-way use.
On Shabbos.
For the sake of eating it right away.
You can wash the, okay.
If my meal is starting at 12, I can't do it at 10. If my meal is starting at 12, I can do it at 11:30. I can wash the lettuce. Because that's being done for right-of-way use. I'm getting rid of the bad from the good for right-of-way use in the way of eating, so it's mutter.
Shabbos and Yom.
Yeah.
Okay, no more last minute questions. Shabbos, that should be all the time.
Squeezing fruits, we already said that explicitly in the Mechaber. Unlike the common misconception, you can squeeze whatever you want on YomTov. No, the Chama mastered it. The sages prohibited squeezing fruits on YomTov because it's usually done in bulk. You do it for more than one day's worth. So therefore, the Chachamim put a restriction involved. The only thing that is possibly you can be lenient with is lemons, since there are opinions who are matter lemon squeezing even on Shabbos, when the malach is ideally biblical. So on YomTov, and that's the way the Alter rules also, that it's mutter on Shabbos, even though we're machmir like the Tzemach Tzedek. On YomTov, there's room to be lenient that you can squeeze lemons even into your tea.
Oh, not just on the salad.
Correct. But on but regarding, let's say, squeezing oranges and things like that, the pashtus way of learning in the poskim is that it's usher, that there's no allowance to do so, even if you're only doing it for one day. There are some poskim who do halachic acrobatics to find a way out to make it mutter, but practically, that's definitely not the Alter Rebbe's opinion, and it's definitely not the simple way of understanding the Isser here.
If you're using it just like a lemon.
To make lemon, I said with lemons it's more lenient because lemons, minadin is mutter even on Shabbos. So on YomTov it's a lot less severe. The whole malach is on derabanan.
If you were inclined to make an orange flavored dressing instead of a lemon in your salad, you squeeze an orange for that reason.
Right. So dressing is for the sake of food, and that's also lesser of a restriction than is squeezing for the sake of drinking. But nonetheless, the best thing is to prepare before YomTov. That's the best thing. Unless you have a very thick, if you have a very thick dressing, then it's like food.
We'll transition.
Okay, we'll just conclude with two more things. Anything relating to animals, trapping animals, has the same halach on YomTov as on Shabbos, so there's no extra heter to trap the bee on YomTov versus Shabbos. Even if it's a kosher bee, even if we have a kosher animal we would like to trap, there's no extra heter. Okay, I'm going to continue these halachas. I guess the next one we'll have to prepare them beforehand. This is so far the introduction.
A bird has adopted us. Comes out of the pestle, cockatiel.
Okay.
You get a cage for it. People say you should get a kitten. For the Shabbos issue,
It's you want to have it as a pet, like it's wild.
yeah, it's wild. It stayed around. It was adopted us.
It adopted you.
No, just hate it. I keep coming back. But people say they're more comfortable like in a cage, an open cage.
Okay, if you want to get them an open cage, it's still not yours. They're not depending on it. You're just helping them adapt to better settings. But you shouldn't adopt it in terms of they're on you for food. Then you have to feed it on time, and you have all these halachas involved. So better keep it wild, keep it natural. Don't cage them up.
Tuesday's class,
What's that?
Tuesday night's class is.
Shavuos.
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 Okay. Want to get it on recording.